You know, ladies and gentlemen, ever since the preview covers for 54 and the preview cover for issue 9 of the Sonic Super Special magazine came out, a lot of people have been questioning exactly what's happening here. You know, some people look most importantly at the redesigns of not just Sally, but of Bunny, Rhoda, and Antoine, and they say to themselves, and some people ask themselves, are we getting a reboot? Is the comic going to go full-fledged reboot on us and still continue the count? And I have to say no. I mean, you know, you may not believe what a certain head writer has to say, but if a certain head writer comes out and says, hey, look, nothing's really going to change about the characters. Sally's still going to be Sally, Rhoda's still going to be Rhoda, Antoine's still going to be Antoine, Bunny's still going to be Bunny, then the only thing we could sufficiently say is what happens to them design-wise from a storyline perspective is due to the Genesis wave. I mean, the description says it best. New villains, new settings. Doesn't say all new new Sallys, new Bunnies. No. It's new villains, new settings. Doesn't say anything about the characters changing. But, you know, I can understand where fans would be coming from with this, why they're so concerned. You know, you take a look at the redesigns of Antoine. You take a look at Rhoda's redesign. You take a look at Uncle Chuck's. And you take a look at, you know, from that little box in the cover preview for Sonic Super Special number 9, you look at Bunnies and Sally's, and you say to yourself, what's going on here? Is there something we don't know? And the truth is, the only thing going on, from maybe a storyline perspective, is the Genesis wave changing the characters around, or changing the characters' appearances. I mean, again, as I mentioned before, and I'll say it again, the best example I could give you with a similar situation was Beast Wars Season 2, the Transmetal Wave. So at the beginning of Season 2, throughout Season 2, and even into Season 3, the Transmetal Wave basically changed the Maximals and the Predacons around. Basically changed the designs and the look. And again, I understand people will say, well, they did that for the toy line. Yes, they did, but, as I've mentioned before, and I'll say it again, there have been certain toy-based cartoons and shows that have had the characters, had the toy versions of the characters changed around, but the cartoon, perhaps live action or CGI versions of those same characters have not changed. So, it's basically, it's not that basically, you know, it's not that big of a, I mean, there's a big change, but, I mean, yes, it was, basically what I'm saying is that if they wanted to, Hasbro could have had the Beast War characters remain the same, but they didn't. They had them change. You see, the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, just because we get, you see, ladies and gentlemen, they could have kept them the way they were, but they didn't. They wanted to show the effects of the Genesis, of the Transmetal Wave. Just like, I guess you could say Archie Comics, Ian Flynn, Paul Kaminsky, and whoever else is involved wants to show the effects of this third Genesis Wave. They want to show that it has an effect on the characters. Now you might ask yourself, well, why just certain characters like the Freedom Fighters? Why them? Well, we don't know if it's just them, but let's look at it. Let's look at that from a storyline standpoint. It could be that the reason only they might get affected is because of the closeness with Sonic, and the fact that they are basically the same, basically like Sonic, have fought this common enemy for most of their lives. It's just a guess, and maybe that's why they got affected. I mean, a lot of people like to point out the certain details of the characters that have changed. They look at Rotor and they say, wow, he's become more muscular, a little trimmed down, more muscular, more brute-wise, you know. I guess he's no longer going to be the Brainiac. You cannot say that. You can't say that because he'll still be the Brainiac. Or one of the Brainiacs anyway. Just because he's changed around doesn't mean he's permanently changed. You see, the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, if characteristics of the characters have changed, then yes, that's going to bother a lot of people, but I don't think so. Because like I said, whether you want to believe a certain head writer or not, if he says the characters are still going to be who they are, then you just got to take his word for it. I mean, let me give you an example. Why would they spend most of their time creating this book? Why would they take their time creating this book right here with these characters inside? Why would they take their time in creating this book, if you will? Why would they take their time in doing this if they would and thus have it be like a guide to the comics if they were going to change everything around? If they were going to change the characters' personalities? Why would they do this? They wouldn't. They would have waited. And the same with this. Why would they start publishing these and all that if they weren't going to, if they were going to change the universe around? Would they continue publishing them? Yes. But knowing that they're going to change the characters' personalities around, would they change them? No. Would they bring it out? No, because they know when people read this, they're going to be looking at the characters from this new perspective, and they're going to be like, that's not the Buddy Rabbit I read in this issue, or that's not the Sally Acorn, or that's not the Rotor. You think, honestly, Archie's going to take that chance? No, they're not. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, the point is, you know, the point is, I don't think we have nothing to worry about, because again, why would they bring these out and other stuff like it if they were switching things around? They wouldn't. Yes, the settings are going to change a little bit on the planet in storyline. Yes, you're going to have new villains, no doubt about that. But it doesn't mean other things are going to change. But again, you got to take the guy's word for it, unless he's trolling you along, but we don't know that. And, you know, there are some fans that have already pretty much accepted that this was going to happen long before it was even announced. Yeah, there was a lot of people that pretty much accepted it. One person is part of the Season 3 staff, if you will, working on Season, and you can meet her at the San Diego Comic-Con if you go to that. Her name's Lola Blue. She'll be in the Sally cosplay outfit. But anyway, she's accepted long ago that this was eventually going to happen. She personally doesn't like remakes of certain things, from what I understand. But she's pretty much accepted that this was going to happen. You know? And then there are some that are like, you know, yeah, you know, we may not like it, but you know what? A redesign is necessary to keep up with the times. Let me kind of give you another example, best I can think of. X-Men. When X-Men, the 1990 series, came out in '92, for about, well, how many seasons was it with the show? 6 seasons? 6 seasons? For 5 of those seasons, Saban and whoever the animation studio was did the animation. After that season, after the second to last season, Marvel took over. And you could definitely see the difference in the character designs. The characters animation-wise, were redesigned in some way, and you could see it. You could see the redesign in the characters. I mean, heck, when they did the Mutant Agenda episode on Spider-Man, where he crossed over with them, you could see a bit of redesign in certain characters. And again, you take a look at the final season of the 1990 X-Men show, and you see characters like Storm, Rogue, Jubilee, Beast, Gambit, Jean Grey. In fact, the entire X-Men Corps, if you will, with a few exceptions like Cyclops and Wolverine. You could kind of see in a majority of them, like say the women of the show, the redesigns. Jean's hair is down long, just like it is in the comics. Jubilee doesn't have her goggles anymore. She's more, I guess, Chinese or whatever she is, whatever race she was. She's more looking like that now. Rogue's hair is a little lighter and it's down a little bit more. You could see the difference in the character designs. Beast looks more human. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that those redesigns in the show that kind of helped match up to what was seen in what people saw in the comics were done in the final season of the show. And that was basically 6 years later. Now you might say, well, Brian, that's 6 years. That was 6 years. This is almost 20. This is 20 years. Yeah, I get it. I get that. But that's just the thing. It doesn't matter how long something's been. When somebody feels, okay, we're going to redesign them for this year and for who knows how long, they do it because they want to attract new viewership, new readers. That final season, when they did what they did, it attracted some new viewers because the viewers who tuned out the series, and it's hard to believe anybody would, tuned out the series. They tuned it out because the characters didn't look like what they read in the comics that much. As soon as that final season was animated, and they saw characters like Jean and Beast and Rogue and Gambit looking almost exactly what they read in the comics, they started to tune into the show. They started to watch it. The point is, that's why the redesigns are occurring. Now, when they did the redesigns on the X-Men characters in the show, did they change the characters? No, they didn't. Or the characters' personalities? No, they didn't. They kept them the same. They didn't change one thing about them. Not one. They didn't change one thing about them. And that's the point I'm trying to make. You take a look at the new Biker Mice show that came out in mid-2000s. You take a look at that show. They redesigned Charlie, or Charlene, or whatever you want to call her. They redesigned her in a big way. Short hair, more of a modernized look. Same thing with Carbine. Same thing with Throttle, Vinny and Moto, Rimfire. They redesigned a lot of the characters. But did they change Charlie's personality around when they redesigned her? Heck no. She was still Charlie. Still a little more edgy, but it was still the Charlie from before. When they changed Vinny and redesigned Vinny and Moto and Throttle and Carbine, did they change their personalities around much? No, they didn't. They were still the same. And just like Biker Mice, and just like with Sonic the comic right now, which is being announced for, there were new threats, there were new settings, there were new villains. And that's exactly what they're describing here with Sonic. The fact is, just because a character gets redesigned or overhauled in appearance, doesn't mean they're going to change personality-wise. It doesn't mean everything's going to be rebooted back to square one. No. It means things are just going to change a little bit because of the time and place we're in. You see, a lot of people, one of the questions people are asking, is why? Why does Antoine give up his vest, his uniform? Why does he have something that's like a sling now or something like that? You know, why is Sally fully clothed? Why is this? Why is that? It's because of the time we're in. It's because of the era in time that we're in right now. You see, a good example of this would be to quote something similar to what legendary wrestling announcer Jim Ross said on a panel on WWE Classics. He basically said, and I quote, or not quote, but try to paraphrase what he said. He basically said that because of the time and era we're in now, you don't see that much hardcore violence anymore, unless the show it's on probably calls for it, or it's unavoidable. That's right, unavoidable. Like Money in the Bank this past Sunday. Some of the injuries, some of the spots there caused some of the superstars to be busted open the hard way. And that was unavoidable. There was nothing you could do. The doctors couldn't come in during the middle of the match and say, stop, let me clean them up. No, you couldn't do that. They had to let it go. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, unless it's necessary, or unless it's unavoidable, they can't do hardcore spots anymore. That's why you don't see blood get spilt that much anymore. It's because of the fact of the time and place. You know, it's because of the fears of hepatitis and AIDS and all that basically has caused hardcore wrestling, the blood and the guts, to be diminished only to a certain following, only to a certain group, if you will, like CZW, Combat Zone Wrestling. They're the only ones, along with a few promotions in Japan, and maybe TNA itself, that still do hardcore violence. They still do it. There's no doubt about it. They still have the hardcore style. CZW more importantly. But the point that I'm trying to make in this comparison from what JR was trying to say, Jim Ross was saying, is because of those fears, you don't see that hardcore blood and guts violence that much anymore in WWE. You see it more in TNA than you would there. But you don't see it that much in WWE anymore, and it looks at times that TNA is kind of avoiding that as well, trying not to be as violent as they used to be, still be hardcore, but not as hardcore as they were. And all because of the fact of that fear of hepatitis and AIDS. The truth is, ladies and gentlemen, if it wasn't for that fear, WWE would still be doing hardcore matches, and they would still have a hardcore title, and they would still be in ECW. But because of that fear, you don't see it that much anymore, unless it's called for. When they do no DQ or no holds bar matches, they pretty much already know that they need to be as hardcore and violent as they can be without spilling blood. Why do you think when somebody gets hit with a chair, the person that hits them with the chair or the person that takes the hit, if not both, get fined now? Why do you think that is? Because they don't want a chance, not just concussions, but the chance that individual is going to get busted open. Again, it's all because of the time and place we're in. That is why, as strange of a comparison as it is, that is why we have the redesigns of the characters. That is why we have these new settings and these new villains, because of the time and place. That is why you now have Sally and Bunny more dressed up, or have, you know, shirts over their chest and stuff like that. That's why you have something like Antoine just wearing something like this, and Rhoda wearing something like that. It's the time and the place. That's what it is. Time and place. Era that we're in. That's why we have it. Whether we like it or not, that's why the time and the place is here. That is why this is happening. That is why you're having more of the female characters get dressed up like you would see in Amy Rose or Rouge the Bat, or Shade or Tikal, or Marina or Vanilla or Cream, whatever. It's because of the fact, I mean, even this new monster chick that's getting a lot of attention off Sonic Lost World, this green monster chick, it's all because of the fact of the time and era we're in. That is why. Now, just because of these changes, does it mean we're going to get a reboot, a full-fledged reboot? No. Did WWE do a full-fledged reboot on their entire company? No. They didn't. They didn't. Just because they went from a TV-14 to a TV PG, if not PG-13 product, doesn't mean they said, okay, we're going to reboot and start all over. No, they just continued on from where they were. They just slowly started to embrace and work into the program, without it being noticed at first, the new policies, the new PG way to go, PG-13 way of, PG-13 way of living or environment. They didn't go and say, okay, we're going to reboot the entire product. No. They basically continued as if nothing changed. They just slowly integrated the PG-13 way. The same thing here. The same thing with Biker Mice. You know, X-Men. The list can go on, folks. The point is, I know a lot of people are kind of concerned. And I understand that. If I was basically the age of a lot of these new generations of fans, if I was the same age as a lot of this new generations of fans that have come to actually become that have actually come to embrace and become fans of characters like Sally and Bunny and Rhoda and Antoine, and started to get used to the way they were and who they were, how they looked. If I was that same age that I was when I first got into this comic 20 years ago, then yeah, I'd probably be pissed myself, but I'm not. Because if the characters are still themselves, with a few design changes, that's fine. That's fine with me. But you know, I'm not going to say I don't have my difference of opinions when it comes to character redesigns or overhauls. You know, I'm not going to just stand here and say, oh, I don't have my differences of opinion on them. I do. I do have my difference of opinion. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the new Nickelodeon version. April O'Neil. If that doesn't tell you how I feel, let me tell you how I feel about that. First of all, I understand why they did it. They've come out and basically said that they feel that an adult April being around teenage turtles does not look good in today's society. But a teenage April makes more sense. So what they do, instead of making April a female adult reporter or scientist, they decided we're going to make her a teenage ninja in training, and we're going to have Donatello get a crush on her. Why? Because they wanted to keep it more in root of today's society, and I guess a little bit more realistic. And did they rework the story a bit? Yeah, they had to, but they kept it to where she's now just a ninja girl in training, and obviously she has more emphasis to the story than we thought. Now, am I in favor of her being rebooted or being overhauled and redesigned into a teenager? No, I'm not in favor of it, but I understand why they did it. Am I in favor of Casey Jones who's supposed to show up being a teenager? No, but I understand why they're doing it. The point is, folks, just because you don't like something, just because you don't like something doesn't mean you have to, agree. I really don't know what to say, folks. Honestly, I've said as much as I can. What I'm trying to say is, just because you don't like something that's going to happen or has occurred, doesn't mean, you know, you should rant. It doesn't mean you should be upset about it. Just voice your opinion in a social way. Just say, look, I understand why they did it, I just don't like it, and I just don't get it. Or, I understand why they did it, I just don't like it. Because I feel it's a betrayal of this. That's all you have to say. You know, with someone like me, like I said, I'm not as vocal about what they did with the April character, but I understand why they did it. I'm not a fan of it, but I understand why they did it. You know? The point is, folks, just because you're not a fan of something, doesn't mean you have to worry and rant and get angry or anything. You just got to accept it. You got to accept it until something else comes along. Unless maybe they say, okay, we thought this would work, it didn't, we're going to go back to what made it work. So let's say they try these redesigns out and they don't get the characters over with the fans. Then all they have to do is just change them back to the way they were. That's it. End of story. You know, it's like this certain court case that caught the nation's eye for the past year or so. No one is in agreement with the decision by the jury. Nobody likes the decision. They feel that it basically proves that our justice system is like that. You know, and basically they showed on television a group of people being very civil, gathered together but being very civil. They said, you had one lady basically say, hey, look, we're not going to do what a lot of people are expecting us to do, or what a lot of people are going to do. We're not going to riot. We're not going to cause trouble. We're just going to march to our capital, our state capital, our governor's capital, and we're going to petition that this basically gets put back into court and that a correct decision or something like that is made, or something along those lines. Again, not a lot of people are going to agree with the decision of the court over this recent case, but you know what? You know, you may not like it, but as this one group has proven, this one lady said in this group has proven, you can be civil about it. So, again, just because you don't like what's going to happen with these characters here, some of these characters like her, if you will, like her and her, just because you may not like the redesigns to them, doesn't mean you have to be angry. Doesn't mean you have to say, oh, let's just reboot the entire series and be done with it. No. You can basically say, I may not like it, but I'm going to see what goes from here. You know, everybody has their choice, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody has a choice. So, we just got to wait and see. I mean, the fact is there is going to be a reboot, but it's going to be very soft. It's just going to redesign the characters, probably put new settings in the world that they live in, and bring in new villains, and that's about it. So, but don't expect the characters to be overhauled character-wise or personality-wise. Don't expect that. And if they are, then Ian Flynn, he trolled us big time. But we just got to wait and see, folks. So that's all I'm going to say. Take your time in watching this video, and comments and video responses are welcome below. I'll talk to you later.